The revolution's begun. The time to stand up has come. We are the rocking of the throne. We are the rocking of the throne.
I'm Victor Tiffany, the co-founder of Revolt Against Plutocracy, talking today with Sander Hicks, the most recent signer of the Contract for American Renewal. Sander, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Victor. Thanks for having me on your stream.
Appreciate your time here. Why don't you begin by telling voters a little bit about Sander Hicks? Who are you and why are you running for office?
Sure. I'm a lifelong media activist. I'm a writer, investigator. I'm an award-winning small business person. I'm the founder of independent publishing company Soft Skull Press. I started a fair trade coffee house called Vox Pop. Today I run a licensed contracting business called Zen Space Makers. And I'm standing up for integrity in government, honesty, transparency, positivity. I'm standing up against the war machine. I'm a peace activist. And I really think that the people are hungry for change. And we need leaders, not politicians.
That's great. So why is it then you signed the Contract for American Renewal?
It was like my own policy statement. You know, there's a lot that I connected with. I know that End Citizens United is something that a lot of people can unite with. You know, we have to realize that 65% of the electorate cares about getting dark money out of politics. And I know that was pretty preeminent. And, you know, that was at the top of your list in your policy statements, and it coincides with mine. So there was a lot of things there that I felt where they could have been written by my own website.
You signed our current version, which apparently the first item on that contract that you signed today is law, right? It was part of the omnibus bill that Congress just passed. Paper ballots, hand countable paper ballots, and transparent audits are built into this omnibus bill because of the big Russia hacking scare that's underway. They actually did what we're going to do, so we're going to probably change that contract in the coming months. But for now, you're on board with Congress and even the President of the United States. So there's there's a number of very expensive. It's great. I mean, I never would have guessed that would have actually come about before the next session, but there you go. There's a number of high-priced items on there: free college for qualified students, Medicare for all, the infrastructure bill, $2 trillion. You signed on to that. You're a tax and spend liberal, aren't you?
Well, I actually think there's something that's on there that needs to be on there, which is a hard examination of some of the myths and legends of the war machine in the past 20 years and the cultural belief system that doesn't encourage enough critical thinking about the war on terror and some of the, you know, they're essentially myths that prop up the war machine. And so as somebody interested in philosophy and politics and truth and interfaith awareness, I think that that propaganda and belief systems are very powerful. And so I think to really be a peace activist, we have to be questioning some of or in fact, all of the Bush-Cheney legends about what was true or not true about 9/11. So I'm not a classic tax and spend liberal because tax and spend liberals don't talk about this kind of thing. I'm a peace activist and I'm a truth activist. And I'm courageously standing up to say that there's really very little truth in the Bush-Cheney official story of the war on terror. And Democrats like President Obama largely perpetuated the drone warfare that grew out of the war on terror. And so if we've got $740 billion being wasted on offense and defense, then there's going to be plenty of money that can be rerouted into social programs, into bailing out Main Street.
I can pretty much guessed what the answer to this next question would be, but which of those 11 positions, those policy positions that are on the contract, which do you expect to emphasize and stress as a candidate, whether on the stump or in a debate with your opponent?
I have only recently reviewed the notes for today. Let me try to get. I should have had this in front of me earlier.
You want to read what it was you signed on to?
I did. I know it's been a very busy day though, Victor. So there's been a lot going on today. Yeah, but he's asking me about. Can you help me find this?
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, you just signed it, so there must have been some of those policy positions that sort of stuck out in your mind. Which ones of those 11 that you talked about Citizens United already, but and the peace position, which would be obviously two of the answers to my question, but was there anything else that stuck out in your mind that you really want to emphasize that you can remember?
Can you tell me give me a brief overview of the 11?
Yeah, it's if I can. There's the first one, which I mentioned is probably signed into law now. That's the election integrity. We talked about
election integrity, right? I wanted to come back on that and say, you know what, paper ballots is not enough. We need to address the low voter turnout that we're experiencing in this country. You know, there's having just recently toured the entire country, there are things that are being done out in other states that are not New York State that could be applied nationwide, like vote by mail, like giving people 2 weeks with their ballot to research referendums and minor elections that they might not know about, like judgeships and other offices. You know, so giving people 2 weeks to mail in a ballot or drop it off is actually a great way to increase voter turnout. That's what happened in the state of Oregon. So that's something I'm pretty passionate about too.
So there's also expanding Social Security benefits by 10%. There's no
Medicaid,
reductions in
Medicare,
no reductions in Medicare, single payer.
Coming back to me, right? Yeah.
Pulling out of the free trade agreements, NAFTA and CAFTA.
Right. Yeah, TPP, big supporter of that. Yep.
And also, well, it's not just. I mean, TPP managed to get blocked by the results of the election, but there's also NAFTA, which is under negotiation, and basically that would be an effort to pull out of that. And of course, that could change if it turns out that President Trump is a fair trader and actually gets rid of the investor state dispute and things like that. So we don't know how that's going to play out in the next Congress.
Yeah, and Trump actually has kind of gone up against mainstream Republican opinion and has actually imposed tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, and so he has been a bit of a protectionist. And I think it's important to it's good that he's not in the mainstream of the neoliberal faction of the Republican Party.
Yeah, exactly, and the Democratic Party. But obviously he's a Republican. Then there's also a no-brainer from your peace activism, which is to pull out of Afghanistan.
Right. Yeah, that's actually been the USA's longest war ever, 16 years. This is key to me because the incumbent, Carolyn Maloney, actually dressed up in a full-length burqa and endorsed the Bush slaughter of 172,000 people. That's how many people we've killed in Afghanistan now. There's intense corruption going on that has, been rolled out under the auspices of the U.S. occupation of Afghanistan. Opium production is back, even though the Taliban eradicated it in 2001. So the deep state is at work with the opium trade in Afghanistan.
So let me just go ahead to the next question, if I might. You have a contract which we'll share a video with you about weaponizing your campaign using this contract in order to clobber your opponent. How do you expect to use it? Are you going to put out a press release that you've joined the CFAR movement, which is becoming a movement now? We're about up to 55 candidates across the country. Are you going to use this in debates with Representative Maloney? Are you going to put this on your website? How exactly do you expect to use this contract now that you're a CFAR candidate?
I'm going to use it as much as possible, and I'd like to network with people and find out who the other, how I can work with the other candidates, and maybe we can do live events in New York City. I'm already reaching out to my fellow progressive. She's a maverick, feisty progressive. Her name's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she's taking on Wall Street fat cat Democrat Joseph Crowley in the neighboring district here in Queens. And we're doing lots of live events with her. We met at the brand new Congress conference. So yeah, I'm eager to network with people and build the coalition.
And finally, tell us, and basically the voters, who or why Sander Hicks? Why not Carolyn Maloney, Representative Maloney? Why should voters want in the primary to choose you over her?
It's time for change. Maloney's been in power for 26 years and hasn't really defined herself with any kind of vision or passion or policies that are remarkable or memorable. We need to get this country off of its addiction to violence, both in terms of foreign policy and domestically. We need to stand for a new possibility of integrity and deep listening in government. The incumbent is largely unresponsive to her constituents. I'm promising town halls. I'm promising regular deep listening with constituents. I'm promising a rejuvenation of democracy, of people power in the 12th Congressional District. I'm talking about public interest venture capital. I'm talking about using Congress's power to print and mint currency and putting capital and capitalism back in the hands of the people, establishing the people's sovereignty over capital, and using capital to fund really cool new businesses that are chartered in the public interest. And it's a mix of market economics and social impact economics. So these are ideas that I think that the time has come. We've had enough of the bailout government, the bailout mentality, the pro-Wall Street mentality, in which government serves Wall Street. What about government serving the people? What about capital serving the people? Well, we the people have the power to do that. So that's what I'm offering.
Well, that sounds great. We certainly wish you the best of luck, and hopefully we can get some better information in your hands as to how to use this thing, and we'll support you with a blast out to our supporters across the state in the coming months. And good luck.
Great. Thanks a lot, Victor. Thanks a lot for having me on your stream.
You're welcome.
Revolt Against Plutocracy won't just be covering the news about the necessary revolution in the United States. Sometimes we'll be making the news. If you want to stay on top of the revolutionary actions and strategies of grassroots, genuine progressives, and our allies, please subscribe to our YouTube channel today.